No one really prepares you for what it feels like to watch time change your face, especially when that face built your career. For celebrities, aging is not private. It plays out in headlines, on red carpets, under unforgiving lights. A small line becomes a rumor, a subtle change becomes a scandal, and sometimes fear quietly leads them into an operating room. They were told it would be simple, a routine procedure costing $20,000, $50,000, sometimes even $150,000 US. Just a refinement, just a refresh. Instead, some walked away with infections, migrating fillers, nerve damage, and pain that lasted for years. This is the story of 10 well-known figures whose search for youth became something far darker. Let's begin with number 1. Alejandra Guzman was already a legend when she decided she wanted a small correction. Stadium tours, platinum records, a reputation for fearless energy on stage. Her image was powerful, rebellious, alive. Privately, however, she admitted feeling the slow pressure of time. In later interviews, she revealed that before the procedure, she told the medical team she did not want transformation. She only wanted maintenance, a subtle contour adjustment that would help her look as strong as I feel. The clinic assured her it was safe. The estimated cost ranged between $30,000 and $60,000 US. What she received was not an approved cosmetic filler. It was industrial-grade polymer, a synthetic material commonly used in construction. Once injected into her body, it did not dissolve. It spread. Within months, inflammation became chronic. The substance migrated through tissue, attaching itself to muscle fibers and connective structures. Pain intensified. Hard nodules formed beneath the skin. Infections required emergency intervention. Surgeons later described the material as behaving like melted plastic embedded inside living tissue. Over the years, she endured more than 40 corrective operations. Each surgery carried the risk of nerve damage or permanent disability. At one point, doctors reportedly warned that if the contamination could not be controlled, amputation might become necessary to prevent systemic spread. The woman who once dominated arenas was now fighting to walk without agony. What began as a minor aesthetic adjustment evolved into a long battle against a foreign substance her body would never fully accept. Jessica Cediel built her career on television, where clarity matters. High-definition cameras, close-up shots, flawless lighting, every detail visible. When she walked into the clinic, she believed she was receiving hyaluronic acid, a temporary filler widely marketed as safe and reversible. She later shared that before the injection, she told the practitioner she simply wanted a subtle enhancement, nothing extreme, nothing permanent. She was assured the product would dissolve naturally over time. The procedure reportedly cost around $20,000 US. What entered her body was not hyaluronic acid. It was biopolymer, a synthetic plastic compound never approved for long-term human implantation. The first symptoms felt minor: burning, tightness. Then the pain escalated. She described it as thousands of heated needles under her skin. The material migrated, embedding itself into muscle layers and triggering chronic inflammation. Surgeons attempting removal discovered hardened masses fused to tissue, making complete extraction nearly impossible without causing severe structural damage. Multiple corrective surgeries followed. Each one reduced visible deformity but failed to eliminate the foreign substance entirely. Fibrosis formed. Nerve sensitivity increased. The body continued reacting as if under attack. Publicly, she faced scrutiny about her appearance. Privately, she faced the reality that something permanent had been injected under false pretenses. This was not a case of chasing excess. It was a case of trust misplaced. A decision meant to be temporary left consequences that may never fully disappear. Sabrina Sabrok never tried to look natural. From the beginning, her image was built on exaggeration, extreme proportions, unmissable presence, a body designed to shock. Unlike others who claimed subtle enhancement, she openly pursued dramatic transformation. In past interviews, she admitted telling surgeons she wanted to push limits. Bigger, more noticeable, more unforgettable. The procedures were not one-time events. They were repeated interventions, with cumulative costs estimated to exceed $100,000 over the years. Her breast implants reached sizes far beyond standard medical recommendations. At first, the change brought headlines and attention. Then the physical consequences began. The weight placed constant strain on her spine and shoulders. Postural imbalance developed. Chronic back pain intensified. Surgeons reportedly warned her about the risk of nerve compression and long-term musculoskeletal damage. The human spine is engineered for balance, not extreme front-loaded pressure. Over time, the discs absorb that stress. Ligaments stretch, muscles fatigue. Daily movement became labor. Simple actions required compensation from other muscle groups. Meanwhile, repeated facial fillers altered tissue elasticity, leading to swelling, distortion, and structural changes that could not fully reverse. Medical specialists have explained that when implants exceed safe proportional thresholds, the body does not adapt indefinitely. It compensates until it cannot. Sabrina did not experience a sudden collapse. She experienced gradual physical rebellion. The body may tolerate ambition for a while, but eventually it enforces its own limits. For decades, Lin May represented glamour in Mexican cinema. She was known for bold performances, confidence, and a face that defined an era of sensual stardom. As time passed, she reportedly grew concerned about visible aging. According to later interviews, she sought facial rejuvenation from someone who was not a licensed medical professional. The promise was quick improvement. No hospital setting, no complicated recovery. What was injected was not an approved dermal filler. It was an oil-based substance, never intended for cosmetic facial use. The consequences appeared rapidly. Swelling did not subside. Tissue hardened. Nodules formed beneath the skin. The foreign material migrated unpredictably, distorting facial contours and triggering chronic inflammation. Oil-based substances cannot be metabolized by the body. Instead, they disperse into surrounding tissue, provoking long-term granuloma formation and infection. Corrective surgery in such cases is notoriously complex. Surgeons must remove compromised tissue without destroying structural integrity. Complete extraction is rarely possible. Residual material often remains embedded permanently. Public reaction was unforgiving. Tabloids amplified images. Speculation replaced empathy. What began as an attempt to soften time instead accelerated visible damage. In medicine, Alfredo Palacios was not a celebrity known for scandals. He was known for shaping beauty itself. As a legendary makeup artist in Latin American entertainment, he spent decades perfecting the faces of iconic actresses. Lighting, contour, illusion. He understood how to slow time on camera. Yet privately, he struggled with what time was doing to him. As the years advanced, reports and public appearances suggested he began undergoing repeated cosmetic injections. Unlike surgical disasters caused by a single catastrophic mistake, his transformation appeared gradual. Session after session, adjustment after adjustment. The cumulative cost of long-term fillers and aesthetic treatments likely exceeded $80,000 over time. These procedures were not emergency interventions. They were elective, preventive, designed to preserve youth. Repeated dermal fillers can alter tissue elasticity and facial biomechanics. Over time, excessive product may lead to rigidity, distortion of natural muscle movement, and a phenomenon some surgeons call filler fatigue. The skin stretches. The underlying support structures weaken. Facial expression becomes limited. Observers began noticing that his features appeared unusually fixed. Movement diminished. Subtle expressions disappeared. In high-definition television, where micro-expressions matter, the difference became visible. Unlike cases involving infection or necrosis, His was a different kind of medical consequence. It was structural alteration through accumulation. No dramatic collapse. No emergency surgery. Instead, a slow transformation that changed how his face functioned. The irony was difficult to ignore. A man who mastered cosmetic illusion became bound by it. Some complications arrive suddenly. Others develop quietly until they redefine. Carmen Campuzano was once considered one of the most recognizable supermodels in Mexico. Her face appeared on magazine covers, runways, and advertising campaigns throughout the height of her career. Symmetry and elegance were central to her image. Years later, that image changed dramatically. Her nasal structure began to collapse, and speculation spread rapidly across tabloids. While rumors exaggerated the cause, reports later indicated that long-term substance abuse and untreated infections severely damaged the nasal cartilage. Reconstructive efforts followed, with cumulative medical costs over multiple surgeries estimated to exceed $70,000. Unlike elective cosmetic enhancement, her case moved into reconstructive territory. Once cartilage deteriorates due to infection, structural support is lost. The nose can collapse inward. Tissue necrosis may occur when blood supply is compromised. Surgeons must rebuild framework using grafts, often from rib or ear cartilage, in procedures that are medically complex and physically demanding. Before reconstruction, sources close to her suggested she expressed fear not just about appearance, but about breathing and structural stability. In severe cases, nasal collapse is not merely cosmetic, it affects airflow and long-term respiratory function. Multiple operations attempted to restore form and function. Each surgery required precision. Scar tissue complicates every additional procedure. Blood flow becomes less predictable. Healing slows. Her transformation became a public spectacle. But medically, it reflected the consequences of prolonged internal damage, finally becoming visible. Not every facial collapse begins in a clinic. Some begin silently and end under surgical lights. Unlike many artists on this list, Fernando Olvera was not associated with extreme cosmetic change. As the longtime frontman of Mana, his public image was built on authenticity rather than perfection. Long hair, intense stage presence, a voice that defined generations of Latin rock. Yet even artists known for substance are not immune to speculation. As years passed, public discussion began circling around how he appeared to age more slowly than expected. Rumors of cosmetic assistance surfaced repeatedly, reflecting the industry-wide discomfort with visible aging. While there is no confirmed record of dramatic surgical procedures, medical interventions tied to vocal preservation were reported, with specialized treatments and corrective care potentially costing upwards of $50,000 over time. His primary medical concern was not appearance, it was function. Years of touring strained the vocal cords, leading to inflammation, nodules, or microhemorrhages. When vocal tissue becomes compromised, procedures may involve laser correction, steroid injections, or microsurgery. These are delicate interventions. Even minimal miscalculation can permanently alter tone or range. Before undergoing treatment, he reportedly expressed concern about maintaining longevity without sacrificing authenticity. Unlike elective cosmetic cases, his decisions were centered on preserving craft rather than reversing age. The risk in vocal surgery is not disfigurement, it is silence. For performers whose identity is built on sound, the operating room carries a different kind of terror. Lil Kim entered the early 2000s as one of the most influential figures in hip-hop. Her confidence, fashion, and unapologetic presence reshaped how female rappers navigated the industry. She did not just follow trends, she created them. But fame magnifies insecurity. Over the years, she spoke openly about struggling with self-image and criticism about her appearance. Industry insiders have long noted the intense pressure placed on Black women in entertainment to conform to narrow beauty standards. Reports suggest that her cosmetic procedures, including facial alterations and skin treatments, accumulated costs estimated to exceed $100,000 over time. Unlike a single catastrophic surgery, her transformation unfolded gradually. Rhinoplasty adjustments, facial contouring, repeated fillers, skin lightening treatments widely speculated upon in media discussions. Medically, repeated facial procedures increase structural risk. Scar tissue builds. Cartilage thins with each nasal revision. Blood supply becomes less predictable. Surgeons often warn that revision rhinoplasty is significantly more complex than the first operation because the anatomy has already been altered. As her appearance evolved, public conversation shifted. Instead of focusing on lyrical innovation, debate centered on photographs. Side-by-side comparisons dominated social media. Before long, the narrative around her artistry became secondary to the narrative around her face. Her transformation was not a single mistake under bright lights. It was a series of calculated choices shaped by an industry that rarely forgives aging or difference. K. Michelle was known for her voice long before headlines began focusing on her body. Her breakout success in the early 2000s and her rise through reality television made her a recognizable presence in both music and popular culture. She projected confidence, strength, control. Behind the scenes, however, she later revealed that she felt pressure to compete visually in an industry where exaggerated curves were becoming normalized. At the height of her visibility, she chose to undergo buttock augmentation using injectable fillers rather than surgical implants. The total cost of her procedures was reported to be approximately $25,000 to $30,000. Initially, she was satisfied with the change. The aesthetic aligned with contemporary beauty trends. But over time, complications began to surface. She later disclosed that the material injected into her body was not medically approved for long-term cosmetic use. Certain black market fillers contain silicone or hydrogel compounds that can migrate, harden, and trigger inflammatory responses. In her case, she described persistent pain, tissue stiffness, and systemic health concerns that escalated beyond cosmetic discomfort. Removal proved far more complex than the initial injection. Surgeons must locate dispersed foreign material embedded in muscle tissue, often without clear boundaries. Extraction risks nerve damage, muscle weakness, and irregular contour deformities. She ultimately underwent corrective surgeries to remove the substance, a process that was physically taxing and emotionally public. Her story shifted from enhancement to recovery. When a trend becomes more powerful than medical caution, the consequences rarely remain superficial. Blac Chyna did not enter the spotlight quietly. From music video appearances to high-profile relationships and business ventures, she built her image on boldness and visibility. Her look became part of her brand: curves, contour, transformation. As her fame expanded, so did her cosmetic journey. Over the years, she underwent breast augmentation, gluteal enhancement, and facial procedures, with cumulative costs estimated to exceed $150,000. At various points, she publicly acknowledged wanting to refine her figure to stay competitive in an industry driven by image. The changes were deliberate, strategic, designed to amplify presence, but enhancement at scale introduces escalating medical risk. Gluteal augmentation, particularly when involving fillers or fat transfer, carries potential complications, including infection, fat embolism, tissue necrosis, and chronic inflammation. Repeated breast procedures increase scar formation and implant-related complications, such as capsular contracture, where hardened scar tissue tightens around the implant, causing pain and distortion. Over time, she made a highly publicized decision to reverse several of these procedures. Implant removal and filler dissolution are not simple undo buttons. Surgeons must manage stretched skin, compromised tissue elasticity, and structural imbalance. Removal surgeries can cost tens of thousands more, adding financial strain to physical recovery. Her transformation ultimately became a cycle of enhancement and reversal. The operating room can reshape a body. It cannot guarantee. A cosmetic surgeon once admitted anonymously that most patients do not ask to look different. They ask to look like someone else, or like the version of themselves they believe they have lost. He said the sentence he hears most often before surgery is simple: "I just want to look like myself again." After hearing these 10 stories, that sentence sounds different, because the body does not always cooperate. What begins as a small correction can become something permanent. Behind every altered face is not just a decision, it is a moment of vulnerability made under pressure. Which story stayed with you the longest? If this conversation made you think, consider subscribing. Some lessons are quieter than headlines, but they last longer.